Tashdile and welcome to Tibet This Week. This is Sakina Bhatt with another edition of Weekly News on Tibet, His Holiness the Dalai Lama and Central Tibetan Administration. Let's look at the headlines. Tibetan woman jailed in protest over Panchen Lama is released in failing health. India and democratic allies must counter China threat, raise Tibet, Xinjiang, says President Dr. Lobsang Sangay. Free nation versus communist China, prospects and challenges for Tibet. Jong Finance to grant up to 5 crores loan at minimum interest for Tibetan enterprises across India. The Canada-China Committee unanimously passes a motion supporting Sino-Tibetan dialogue. Central Tibetan Administration's Health Department aids Chamunda Quarantine Center. 16th Tibetan Parliament in Exile postpones its 10th session till March. Tibetan activist cycles from Paris to Geneva, calls for freedom in Tibet. A Tibetan woman named Dolker, jailed for 15 months for spreading word of a relative's public call for the release of Tibet's Panchen Lama, has reportedly been released from prison, crippled and in failing health after serving her full term. Dolker, who was convicted in May 2019, was reportedly released on August 15th and is now receiving medical care at her home in Sherchu County in Sichuan's Karzai, Tibetan Autonomous Prefecture. As India is faced with yet another clash with China at its borders in Galwan, one that has remained unresolved for months now, CTA President Dr. Lobsang Sangay says India must continue to defend its territorial interest and emulate the tactical pushback of Doklam 2017. For Doklam pushback was one incident which caught the Chinese government by surprise and they withdrew to some extent.
As usual, the Chinese strategy is they enter 10 kilometers and they withdraw 2 or 3 kilometers back and say, there is what they call, peaceful settlement. But in the process, they occupy 7 kilometers of land. But having said that, the standoff and pushback was first time, I felt. So even at Galwan Valley, the pushback should continue.
Speaking to the Indian news media, Dr. Sangay warns that democratic India has an ideological battle to win against the Chinese Communist Party regime. On the commemoration ceremony of India's 74th Independence Day held at the Kasha Secretariat in the presence of colors, secretaries and senior officials of Central Tibetan Administration departments, CTA President appealed to the government of India to take Tibet's history with China as a guideline when dealing with the People's Liberation Army.
Now, with this growing awareness, how important Tibet was and is and should be, I think there is growing interest and support for the Tibetan people. So we want to urge the great people of India to learn more about Tibet. Tibet is crucial in having peace in the subcontinent. And continue to support us.
Dr. Sangay also attended the celebration of the 74th Independence Day at the police ground in Dharamshala with the presence of Shri Vipin Singh Parmar, Speaker of Vidhan Sabha HP and other dignitaries. On Monday this week, 3 eminent speakers had a virtual discussion on the topic USA calls free nations to change Chinese Communist Party, analysis and prospects for Tibet, a topic that is not only current and topical but relevant to the future prospect and status of Tibet. CTA President Dr. Lobsang Sangay, Michael Van Walt, Professor of International Law at Golden Gate University in San Francisco and legal advisor to CTA, and Norman John Baker, former MP and Minister of State at the Home Office, UK government, talked about the importance of the governments of the world to take the opportunity to course correct on Tibet now.
When Tibet issue was almost number 1 or 2 in the international forum, should be, revived. So that's why not just Tibetans and our friends around the world should be more vigilant, more active, more vocal, and that's how, we can take advantage of this developing scenario in the global stage?
It's a book we just completed, and it is now with the publisher. It's going to look something like this, the cover, and it'll be available on Amazon bookstores in October. And it presents the Chinese claims and debunks them on the basis of both historical and legal analysis.
But you cannot have consensus unless the other side also wants consensus, and the Chinese government does not. They regard consensus seeking as weakness. So that's why, when we look at the American response, the American government response, the American democratic response, that I support that. It's the only thing I think that President Trump does that I actually support, because he and his administration, Mike Pompeo and others, have taken a view that if we don't change communist China, they will change us.
The discussion was organized by the Office of Tibet based in London. The Central Tibetan Administration and the Department of Finance announced a new loan product on Tuesday this week, under which Jong Finance will provide loans up to 5 crores for the Tibetan enterprises across India. Dr. Sangay announced that efforts are underway to register Jong Finance as a full-fledged bank and secure an SFB license, and clarified that though registered with Reserve Bank of India as a non-banking financial institution, Jong Finance is very much alike in function as a banking institute, as it involves loan sanctions and investment on equity shares, etc. He also informed that Jong Finance is now a committee member of Reserve Bank of India, and henceforth it would adopt the standard rules and regulation of the Indian banking system as it endeavors to become a full-fledged bank. The Special Committee on Canada-China Relations unanimously passed a motion calling for Canada's support to the dialogue between the representatives of His Holiness the Dalai Lama and Central Tibetan Administration and the Government of People's Republic of China. The motion was originally introduced by MP Garnet Geneva on August 6th during the testimony of Tibetan political leader Dr. Lobsang Singay. The Special Committee voted to adjourn the motion. During the adjournment period, Tibet groups and associations in Canada, led by Canada Tibet Committee and Office of Tibet, Washington, D.C., lobbied for all-party support to the motion. The motion will be brought to House of Commons in September. CTA delegation led by the Health Colonel Chokyong Wongchuk distributed food packages for COVID patients being treated at the District Institutional Quarantine Center in Dad, Chamunda in Himachal Pradesh. The District Institutional Quarantine Center, which is essentially a COVID treatment center, has over 50 to 60 patients infected with COVID-19. Doctors, members of the facility, and officials of the District Commissioner Office who received the CTA delegates thanked the goodwill gesture. A month ahead of the 10th session of the 16th Tibetan Parliament in Exile, the Speaker and Deputy Speaker announced on Monday this week that the session is postponed until March 2021.
So with all these circumstances, all these problems, due to this COVID-19. And according to the Charter, the Article 6, Article 49, the Clause 2, the Standing Committee and the Speaker and Deputy Speaker have rights to extend or to postpone the Parliament session.
Although the September session shall not be convened, matters and proceedings related to the Tibetan Parliament in Exile are slated to be executed without any negligence. As such, the annual reports of the CTA's main offices and its institutions for the fiscal year 2019 to 2020 is being reviewed by the members of the Standing Committee. Accordingly, questions raised on the annual reports by the Standing Committee will be submitted to the respective departments through the Kasha Secretariat. The solo Tibetan cyclist Nawang Tsepel, campaigning for freedom and human rights in Tibet, Hong Kong and East Turkestan, arrived on 19th August in Geneva, Switzerland from Paris with an appeal to the UN. With the support of the Tibet Bureau Geneva, Tibet will file its 8-point appeal to the OHCHR, shedding light on the diverse concerns right from freedom in Tibet, Uyghurs in Xinjiang, political demonstrators at Hong Kong, to environmental exploitations and accountability of lives of many that have been affected by the wet market in China. So much for today. See you next time and have a great weekend.